Today we're diving deep into the world of star ratings in Football Manager. What do they really mean? Where do they come from? And how much should you rely on them? In this video, we aim to answer all of those burning questions. First things first, let's clarify what star ratings are not. They're not the definitive measure of a player's overall rating, like you'd find in a game like FIFA or other sports games. Instead, star ratings are heavily influenced by various factors, which we'll discuss in greater detail in this video. But before we get into that, let's take a moment to understand the three different coloured stars that you will encounter. Each colour signifies something slightly different, and we'll explore those distinctions in this video. So, where can we find the star ratings? Now, the two most obvious places are in your team's squad page and the scouting centre. On a player's profile page, you can view their coach report or their scout report, depending on whether they're with your team. The coach report should sync up with the squad page. The scout report should sync up with the scouting centre. You're following along, depending on, obviously, whether they're with your club or not. Additionally, you're going to find star ratings in your development centre as well, and you can assess the potential of your youth prospects and uncover some potential wonder kids. Now, as we've said, there's going to be two sets of ratings as well for each player. So one is for current ability, one is for potential ability, and these ratings range from half a star all the way to the highly sought after full 5 stars. However, there's some important details we need to address. One common myth is that star ratings are universal across the whole game, so it doesn't matter what league or country or anywhere in the game you are, that they're the same scale. They're not. They're completely not. That's not what they are. In reality, star ratings are entirely relative to your current situation, your current club that you're managing. For instance, a 5-star player in League 2 might only be a 1-star player in the Championship, or maybe not quite that extreme, but you get what I'm saying. Keep that in mind, especially if you are progressing up the leagues and you're improving your squad every single season. That 5-star wonder kid youth player that you got 3 seasons ago through your youth system, now he's breaking through into the first team, he's only a 3-star player. That doesn't mean he's not developed as well as he was expected to. It just means the rest of your squad is better than it was 3 years ago. It's all relative. We're going to take a really extreme example here. So let's check out the Wrexham squad at the start of the game. We can see that there are 3 or 4 players here with 4 stars. We've got Mullin, O'Connell and Palmer. We'll just focus on Mullin, to be honest, because that's what we're going to use as an example. We're going to make a couple of changes in the editor. We're going to send Mullin to Manchester City and replace him with Erling Haaland. So obviously Haaland, as we've now pulled him into the Wrexham squad, is a full 5 stars in the National League. He'd probably be higher if the scale went above 5 stars, but it doesn't. It's not possible. But you can see the impact he's had on the rest of the squad. All the other players are exactly the same, but they've just shifted down because Haaland is that much better. By comparison, they are much worse. It's as simple as that. They're the same quality, but Haaland is so much better that he makes everyone else look worse. So with that in mind, we're going to jump over to Man City. And obviously Mullin was 4 stars at Wrexham in the National League. At Man City, he's gone from those 4 stars to 1.5. He's still the same player. He's still got the same attributes. You can still put him in your squad if you think he's good enough, but he's not. Relative to the rest of his new surroundings, he's much worse. He's only a 1.5 star player rather than a 4-star player. As I've said, it's all relative. Things can be a bit more complicated though. So star ratings are the view of whichever staff member is producing the report you're looking at. So they can vary very much so depending on the coach or the staff member responsible for providing the report. So you can check this. You can head to the staff responsibility page and review the selected member of staff. Obviously you want someone with very high attributes or relative to your situation for judging player ability and judging player potential. The guy you set here, so I think by default it will always be your assistant manager. You can change that around, obviously, by putting different staff members in if they've got better attributes in these areas. Play around and see how much the attributes change the influence the perception of the players in the star rating. If, generally speaking, they should all be in the same ballpark, there'll probably be a few fringe cases where someone might be showing as a 3.5 star or a 4 star, depending on the staff member. But it should relatively, unless they are 1 and 1 and comparing against 20 and 20 in the two staff attributes, the player judging player ability and judging player potential, you won't see a massive change, but over time you will notice the difference. Now, it's widely known that these attributes matter for scouts, but it's also very important that your assistant manager or a coach or someone in your staff team, in your coaching team, have high ratings in these areas Especially, it's crucial if you heavily rely on star ratings to guide your decisions. So if you're not digging deep into attribute by attribute on your players and you're using the staff's view, their star rating, as a guide to what you do as a manager, you need a member of staff who's providing these reports and providing these star ratings to actually have an idea of what they're doing, to be good at what you're asking them to do. Otherwise, you might as well just be picking your squad in the dark. So speaking of star ratings themselves, let's discuss their scale. We mentioned earlier that they range from half a star to 5 stars. There are a couple of exceptions though. In the development center, you might come across silver stars. Now we mentioned 3 colours earlier. There's gold, silver and one more which we'll cover in a second. Now silver stars are very common across your youth prospects. Now these basically represent the current ability, while the potential ability is still represented by the gold stars. Now the silver scale essentially differentiates younger players and will disappear as they age and develop into better players. So if you order them by ability, you'll notice that silver star players rank below those with a single gold star. So basically silver stars break down everything below a full single gold star for younger players to kind of give you an idea of the pecking order rather than just grouping everyone at half a star and you having no idea who is actually better than who. There's another case where you're going to encounter white stars. They're the third one. Again, this usually relates to youth players, so in their potential ability you'll get a range. You'll get like 3.5 to 5 stars, but the last 1.5 stars will be white. That basically means there's a big chunk of uncertainty at their current age. It can change as time develops. The uncertainty disappears as the player matures, or you scout them more, so you can get older players with white stars, but that basically means you need to scout them a bit more to get an idea of what their ability or potential ability looks like. As you scout them further or gain more knowledge or they develop and mature, the range will disappear and you'll get a more solidified view in gold stars. However, if they're still young, they might still be a range no matter how intense your scouting has been. Now, it's essential to understand that a player's star rating isn't solely determined by their skills and performance on the pitch. It's heavily influenced by various factors, and anything that appears in the pros and cons section of a scout report or a coach report will basically factor into that overall star rating. They include, so off the top of my head, there's players' form in matches, performance in training will impact it, their overall value to the team, including their fit within the current squad registration or eligibility criteria. All of these elements and more, just go and have a look at a few scout reports or coach reports and see what appears in the pros, see what appears in the cons. They will all have an impact on basically the star rating. So if you get 2 like for like exactly the same players and attributes, but they've got different things going on behind the scenes that appear in the pros and cons, they'll have different star ratings. Basically you need to have a look at all of them to get an idea. All of these elements and more, they contribute to the relative value and impact their star rating and their value within your squad. Now, star ratings are dynamic. They don't get set once and that's it. It's a dynamic metric that fluctuates throughout the season. However, if you understand what influences them and what doesn't, they can provide a value at a glance overview of your squad. I highly recommend using them if you are new into a team or you're massively overhauling the side. You can use them in conjunction with a lot of other things that you've got in your toolbox. So the player's attributes, for example, the requirements for specific roles you want to fill. We've not even touched star ratings on roles yet, but they basically provide a view of how that player fits the role you are putting them in. So you might get a player who is amazing on an attribute basis for a specific role, but he's never played there, so his star rating won't reflect how amazing his attributes suggest he is. He needs to get more familiar with the role before he can have a higher rating. That doesn't mean you can't play him there. So if you've got someone who is naturally a right back, but he's got all of the amazing attributes you think he can be an attacking midfielder, and his attributes line up perfectly with the role, but he's never played there, he doesn't have any familiarity with the role, his star rating will be lower until you play him there, until he develops that familiarity. He might be instantly amazing in that role, but his star rating won't catch up until he's had some experience and developed some tactical familiarity as well to get a better rating within the role. Now, personally, I find them, star ratings that is, particularly useful in the squad planner and squad depth charts and basically an overview of the squad itself. They give you a quick glimpse to areas of your formation or your squad that might need strengthening and basically give you areas to look at and look at in more depth. and they give a great help on the tactics page. As we said, they assess your players' suitability for particular roles without constantly switching back and forth, comparing attributes, looking at all the different attributes that fit into a role. They give you that overview at a glance for you to make snap decisions if you need to, and basically give you an area to focus on if that's something you need to do within your specific situation. So in conclusion, I think star ratings are a fantastic tool if you know how to use them and know what they represent. They can be very dangerous if you don't know what they represent or not sure how to use them. If you think they're just an overall rating, like an overall rating in FIFA, for example, as we mentioned, it's not that, so don't get drawn in to think that it is that. Someone with a higher star rating might not be the right player, so you might have someone who's rated as a 4-star against someone who's rated as a 3-star, but the 3-star player actually fits your situation better because you know what's gone into getting that star rating in the first place. They shouldn't be your sole reliance, nor are they inherently flawed, actually. A lot of people think star ratings are completely useless. I don't agree. I think they have a great use if you know what goes into them. Remember, combine the star ratings with a deeper understanding of your squad and your players and your attributes and the requirements of your players for your desired tactics and your desired squad. I think that's key, right? Use the tools you have in front of you. Don't dismiss star ratings, but don't overly rely on them as well. Might sound like I'm sitting on the fence, but they are very useful in context and if you know what feeds into them, which now you do after watching this video. And that wraps up our exploration of star ratings in Football Manager. If you want to keep learning, check out this playlist on screen now for all of the league guides we've created here on the channel for Football Manager 2023, or check out this video on how to update your game ahead of the new football season.